Before the first ray of sun touches the stones of your day, take a breath and imagine this. A city trembling in silence, a king praying through the night, and an army of 185,000 about to vanish without a sound. This isn't fantasy. This is history. Raw, brutal, divine. And today, you're going to witness it unfold like never before. If you crave stories that shake your bones, that remind you of the unseen powers moving behind the scenes of men and empires, this is your moment. Subscribe to the channel, activate the notifications, and never miss a chapter that could change how you see the world. Let's step into the shadows of Jerusalem and watch the heavens roar. Hezekiah stood on the edge of the temple steps, his hands trembling not from weakness but from the weight of knowing. Outside those walls, the greatest military force on earth was breathing down his city's neck. Inside, he whispered not commands, but prayers. No shouts, no drums. Just the raw murmur of a man who knew that steel wouldn't save them. It was the kind of night where silence was louder than battle cries, where faith would be tested like never before. Sennacherib's legions were not just soldiers, they were legends in motion. From the mountains of Persia to the deserts of Egypt, they had devoured kingdoms, turned cities to ash, and rewritten borders in blood. And now, they were camped like locusts around Jerusalem. 185,000 men. Swords, chariots, war machines, all aimed at one final city still daring to resist. Yet inside those walls, the people didn't sleep. They waited, breath held, hearts pounding like drums. This wasn't just a siege. It was the collision of two worlds, earth and heaven, flesh and spirit. On one side, an empire built on pride and conquest. On the other, a king who had torn down idols, restored the temple, and dared to place his kingdom in the hands of a god unseen. It was madness, it was defiance, and it was hope sharpened to a blade's edge. His people watched him, not because they believed, but because they wanted to believe. In the Assyrian camp, wine flowed. Laughter echoed through the command tents. They believed the war was already won. Tomorrow, Rabshakeh said, Jerusalem falls like the rest. The arrogance wasn't strategy, it was certainty. And that certainty would be their undoing, because something ancient stirred in the wind that night. Something not seen by mortal eyes but felt in the soul. A stillness, a pressure in the air, like the calm before a divine storm. One old general looked up at the starless sky and felt the hair rise on his arms. He had seen hundreds of battles, thousands of deaths. But this was different. He felt watched, judged, as if the darkness itself was holding its breath. He said nothing. Men like him didn't speak of fear, but deep in his gut, a whisper echoed, "You should not be here." Inside the temple, Hezekiah wept, not from despair, but from surrender. He laid Sennacherib's threats before the altar. "You alone are God," he cried. "Let the world know it." It wasn't a speech for his people. It was a cry to the heavens. No backup plan, no negotiation, just a plea thrown into the cosmic silence. And somewhere beyond the stars, something heard him. Because that night, the heavens moved, not with fire or thunder, but with a single command. One angel, one purpose. One moment that would etch itself into history and haunt empires for centuries. The armies of man would never see it coming, but the soul of Jerusalem had already begun to sing. He didn't glide or roar when he came. The angel descended as light touches a still pond, without sound, without resistance. But the moment he arrived, the very atoms in the air recoiled. Dogs howled, horses reared. Trained war beasts, creatures bred to face steel and fire, cowered and whimpered in the shadows. Something older than time, something holy and terrifying, had entered the world of men. And he did not come to negotiate. He came to execute. In the heart of the camp, Sennacherib awoke with a weight on his chest he couldn't explain. No screams, no alarms, just a gnawing dread rising like smoke in his lungs. He stepped outside his golden tent, expecting to see the stars. But the sky had shifted, dimmer, closer, watching. He squinted, and for a breathless instant, saw it. A shimmer, a silhouette. A flash of wings not made of feathers, but of flame and judgment. He would never admit it, but in that instant the King of Kings feared something greater than himself. Death did not march that night. It glided, it whispered, It passed like fog, but wherever it moved, life ceased. Soldiers dropped mid-sentence. Commanders collapsed before drawing breath. Arrows were never fired, swords never swung. The angel didn't take prisoners, didn't announce its coming. It simply erased. 185,000 men, trained, armed, and hungry for war, gone like mist at sunrise. No blood, no wounds, just silence and awe. From the city walls, the watchmen stared in disbelief. One moment, the valleys buzzed with torchlight and battle songs. The next, stillness. Torches dropped. Fires faded. A hush rolled across the hills like a tidal wave. A young soldier asked his commander what was happening. The old warrior stared, eyes wide. "It's not what's happening," he whispered. "It's who." And the truth settled on their hearts like a sacred weight. They were witnessing a miracle in motion. In the temple, Isaiah fell to his knees. The prophet who had warned kings, cursed nations, and challenged empires now trembled in awe. He had seen visions before, but nothing like this. Not a vision, a manifestation. Divine justice incarnate. And when the light receded and the silence deepened, a voice filled the temple like thunder wrapped in honey. "I have heard your cry." The prophecy was fulfilled not by word, but by fire unseen. Dawn came, not with victory songs, not with trumpets, but with breath held in reverent disbelief. The people of Jerusalem climbed their walls and saw the impossible. The valley was still. No clatter of armor, no war cries, just bodies, thousands of them, frozen in sleep eternal. A whole army, wiped from existence without a single strike from a Hebrew blade. No man alive could have done this. Only one could, and they knew his name. Ezekiah stood above it all, his face bathed in morning light and tears. He didn't shout. He didn't rejoice. He simply looked to the heavens and nodded. "You kept your word," he whispered. Around him, the people began to sing. Old men wept. Children danced. Women raised their arms to the sky. The city of God had been saved, not by cunning, not by courage, but by faith, sharpened into unbreakable steel. They came out slowly, one by one, like survivors from a dream. The gates of Jerusalem creaked open as a handful of the bravest souls ventured into the valley of the dead. They stepped over swords still sheathed, walked among warriors whose last breath had vanished without warning. No signs of struggle, no chaos, just rows and rows of lifeless men as if frozen mid-thought by a force beyond comprehension. Some fell to their knees, others simply wept. There was no glory here, only the raw echo of divine power. Among the fallen lay generals in gold, assassins with blood on their blades, captains draped in silk. Death had made no distinction. Whether hardened or innocent, famed or forgotten, they had all been touched by the same silent hand. One priest dared to speak aloud what everyone felt in their bones. This wasn't human. The air itself still hummed, like a bell long struck. And in that vibration, they understood. This was sacred ground. A battlefield not between men, but between pride and providence. Back within the city, the songs turned to action. Eager hands cleared rubble. Streets once quiet with fear now pulsed with purpose. Hezekiah moved swiftly. He summoned scribes. "Write it all," he commanded. Every word, every moment. This wasn't a tale for bards. It was a testimony for generations. He knew that memory fades, but scripture remains. And what they had seen, the power that had descended, had to be preserved, or humanity would forget what it cost to be defended by heaven. But while Jerusalem rose in praise, the Assyrian survivors crawled in shame. Sennacherib, once cloaked in invincibility, now wrapped himself in silence. His carriage moved through the dust with no banners, no cheers, only fear. He ordered the official record to lie. "Tell them it was a plague," he muttered. "Something natural, something explainable." But the men riding beside him knew better. They had heard no coughs, no fevers, just the sound of hearts stopping mid-beat and torches dying in still hands. Back in Nineveh, whispers moved faster than couriers. Priests of foreign gods began rituals of purification. Councilmen avoided the king's gaze. Even his sons stepped lightly. The great conqueror had returned, but his shadow was thinner, his eyes darker. He saw the truth in every glance. They all knew. His might had been crushed by a god he mocked. The silence of that valley echoed through the palace halls, and no amount of denial could quiet it. Isaiah, meanwhile, sat in a quiet chamber in Jerusalem. His disciples surrounded him, ink and parchment at the ready. "Write this," he said, his voice steady but soft. "Not for us, but for those yet to come." And so they did. Word for word, vision for vision, they etched the story of the angel, of the judgment, of the rescue that came like thunder clothed in silence. It wasn't just prophecy anymore. It was proof, tangible, eternal. And while the city moved with joy and renewal, one thought settled in every heart. If God could do this, what else might he do? Faith deepened, temples filled, fathers told sons, and mothers whispered to daughters. The story didn't belong to kings anymore. It belonged to the people, to every soul who had ever doubted, ever feared, ever begged to be seen. Now they knew. They weren't just seen. They were protected, chosen, remembered. And so the story spread, not as a tale of war, but as a legend whispered in the corners of marketplaces, retold in flickering lamplight across the known world. From Damascus to Egypt, from Babylon to the islands of the sea, travelers spoke in hushed voices of a night when an invisible force erased an empire's pride. No one knew exactly how, but everyone knew who. It wasn't strategy. It wasn't luck. It was divine wrath, unfiltered, unmistakable. The fear of Jerusalem's God now lingered in every royal court. Ezekiah, now elevated beyond king, almost prophet in the eyes of his people, turned his focus inward. He tore down the last idols still clinging to the hills, ordered walls strengthened, water rerouted through the earth so no siege could starve them again. "We were saved by grace," he told his council, "but we will honor that grace with wisdom." His voice carried the weight of a man who had seen God act, not in dreams, but in fire and silence and death. He would not waste what was given. Yet among the glory came temptation. When Babylon sent emissaries with gold and flattery, Hezekiah's pride swelled. He showed them everything, his treasures, his armory, the secrets of his city. He forgot for a moment that the strength of Jerusalem had never been in what could be touched or counted. Isaiah returned with sharp eyes and sharper words. "What you have revealed," the prophet warned, "will one day be taken." But it was too late. The seeds had been sown, watered by ego. Meanwhile, Sennacherib's end approached not on the battlefield, but in his own house. Paranoia had consumed him. Trust had rotted. He feared his gods. He feared his people. And most of all, he feared the memory of that night. Until finally, justice found him in the shadows of his own temple, cut down by the hands of his sons, betrayed in the very place he once claimed invincibility. It was not a noble death. It was the final echo of a prophecy fulfilled in full. 20 years passed. Ezekiah died in peace, buried as a hero. His name spoken with reverence, his deeds etched into temple stone. But like all stories, memory faded. His son Manasseh rose to power, and with him, the old gods returned. Altars were rebuilt. Sacred songs replaced with chants to the sky. The miracle became myth. The fear of the Lord grew distant, like a dream half remembered by morning. But Isaiah, now old and bent, still remembered. In a quiet corner of the temple, surrounded by scrolls and silence, Isaiah spoke to the last of his students. "Write this," he said once more, "because darkness will come again, and when it does, they will need to know." His voice trembled, but not from fear, from fire. They will need to remember that our God does not slumber, that when all seems lost, he acts, swiftly, completely, without needing a single sword drawn by man. And so, they wrote. And across the centuries, as kingdoms rose and fell, as temples were built and burned, one story endured. The night an angel walked unseen and unopposed. The night faith stood while empires crumbled. The night Jerusalem was not conquered, but crowned. And though the stones of the city would be broken again, though its people scattered like dust, one truth would echo through time. The God of Israel defends his own. What happened that night wasn't just about a city saved. It was about a God who listens, who moves, and who fights for his people when all hope seems lost. Let it remind you that no matter how great the enemy, no matter how dark the night, he is not distant. He is near, and he is powerful beyond imagination. If this story stirred something in your soul, don't let it end here. Subscribe to the channel, follow Jesus, and carry this fire into your life. Share it, live it, believe it. I'm Oliver, and it's been an honor walking with you through this forgotten battlefield of faith. Until next time, stay brave, stay rooted, and never forget, you are not alone. See you soon, family.